right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what other movies inspired it. And today on the show, we're getting a little controversial, but you know what? We saw a movie that we liked, and we said, let's talk about it. We are talking about Dragged Across Concrete, which was written and directed by S. Craig Zahler and stars Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn as a couple of bad cops who get caught doing some bad stuff, and they get kicked off the police force, and so they decide to go into the criminal underworld to try to make some money. And, I'm sure we have listeners of this show from every political walk of life. Some of you who have listened for a long time probably know I'm a pretty big progressive myself, but this movie is pretty right-wing, and so I find a lot of other, movie podcasts and critics don't want to give it any coverage. And, I understand Mel Gibson has his history of being a piece of human garbage, but the man can act, and this is a good movie. That's really what it comes down to, and we wanted to talk about it. My co-host for the episode, Clinton Freeman, he loved this movie. I liked it quite a bit. And funny enough, S. Craig Zahler also produced, didn't direct, the Standoff at Sparrow Creek, which is the only other VOD movie that we've done on this show. So I don't know how he keeps ending up on these episodes, because normally we only do theatrically released movies, and then a couple of smaller indies that we've done. But these are like major but only on VOD movies. So kind of surprising that he's shown up twice now. But I don't know. I'm not going right wing on you guys, I promise. So anyway, if any of these kind of controversial themes and racism and all these things are something you don't want to hear, then you probably should skip this episode and go to the next one. But I really do think this is a good movie and worth talking about. So before we get into that conversation, I want to remind you all to please make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. Follow us on social media at PiecingPod. Do all the stuff we always tell you to do. I'll remind you at the end of the episode, of course. For now, let's get into the conversation. All right, back on the show with us today. It's been a little while, but Clinton Freeman, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. Excited to be back on.
Definitely
a fun movie fun depends on how you say fun. Good movie, I'll say that, to discuss today. So I'm definitely excited.
I love where we're headed with this conversation already. I love it. Yeah, Dragged Across Concrete is it's kind of a weird movie to talk about, because all of the political things are like really difficult to ignore, to try to pretend they're not there. But at the same time, I kind of feel like that's what we're here to do. I feel like I think a lot of critics or podcasts might say, right-winger stuff and Mel Gibson, I'm just going to not cover it. Right. But I really like this movie, and I know you really like this movie, and I felt like it would be a fun conversation. Yeah, so...
Yeah, and that's the thing. Art is about pushing boundaries and pushing buttons, and that's the thing. I don't see this at all, and we'll get into this more and more details, but I don't see this at all as a movie made for like Trump supporters or whatever, and just hateful people. I don't see that at all. But anyway,
right, exactly. I don't either. I think it's just a story about some complicated characters, and that's what it comes down to. And there are so many movies that we've loved over the years that have complicated characters.
Right.
That exactly. Makes for an interesting movie.
To me, that's what makes movies good, is when you have complicated and interesting characters. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, with all that said, let's jump right in and get to some puzzle pieces. So for Dragged Across Concrete, what is your first puzzle piece?
Okay, for me, the one that just totally jumped out, and it's a movie I love quite a bit, and that's the movie Trespass, which from
Mm.
the '90s with Bill Paxton and Ice-T. It's got like a whole bunch of people. Ice Cube's, I think's in that as well. It's one I haven't watched in a while. I do have it on DVD. It recently came out on Blu-ray. I do have to get it on Blu-ray. But Trespass, yeah. I mean, a lot of what goes on with it is it's about the these two white guys, Bill Paxton and William Sadler, and they know about this gold that's supposedly in this abandoned building. And then what happens is you've got people that actually live in the building, and then you've got these other people who are like drug dealers or something that then they go there to to do their work, and then they kind of just cross each other's paths, and then it ends up being where the most unlikely person ends up like the hero, and everybody else is like
Hmm.
wiped out. So in a lot of ways, structurally, it's almost the same movie as far as like what plays out. But that's a movie I love. Is Walter Hill. It's one of my favorites of his. Of course, a lot of people like a lot of his older stuff, but that was the '92 or so, in the big boom of Ice-T movies with New Jack City around in that time
Sure,
period.
sure. Yeah.
But
No, I haven't seen it
this
since
one,
back then, but it was awesome.
yeah, but this one is very much it's kind of a gritty crime movie, and then it's also kind of an exploitation movie. So it's kind of in that
Hmm.
same vein as like a Walter Hill type movie. So it had to have been an inspiration, I think, and definitely it works as a good companion movie for if somebody likes that movie, I think they will enjoy this one. So.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's a great first puzzle piece to kick this thing off. And yeah, like I said, I haven't seen it in a million years, but I remember it was a great movie back then. And I totally see like that setup once we get, into the plot of this thing,
Right,
that
exactly. Yeah,
it does seem to go along with that quite well.
right.
That's funny. I hadn't thought of it though. That's great. Right on. Well, for my first puzzle piece, and I wanted to get this one out of the way first because it's the most critical of this movie, because I did enjoy this movie
Right.
quite a bit. But the thing that if I had to pick something that I didn't like about it,
Mhm.
there's a meme that people like joke around about
Ah,
lately. It's the "We live in a society" meme,
ah,
and
right,
I feel like that comes very much from The Dark Knight.
right,
And so The Dark Knight is my first puzzle piece, and not just for the genuinely cool heist, or not heist, but like bank robbery scenes,
right,
which are really well done and tense and exciting. But from the social commentary of the society we live in, and just how bad everything has
right,
gotten, and how divided we all are. And I think that what's his name, Craig Zahler, S Craig Zahler, I should say.
right, right,
He's a little heavy-handed with it. There are some lines of dialogue are just so obvious, and you could totally picture. We all, both of us are liberal guys, but we could, I'm sure we all have our conservative friends, and we could picture some of these lines coming straight out of our conservative friends' mouths,
right.
and some of that was just so like a little like cringingly obvious. And so I just wanted to get that one out of the way first, because from here on out, it's all going to be me talking about how much I like this movie.
Ah. So no, yeah, I didn't even think about the Dark Knight, and I didn't think about the meme either. But you hit that on the nail on the head for sure. This is a bit over the top with its kind of you know political beliefs, and I don't know that necessarily the movie is, but some of the characters for
Hmm.
sure. I mean, and
Right.
that's the thing, is that to me, there's so there's so much more than that. That yeah, that definitely is a little heavy handed, um, but I enjoy preachiness in movies from time to time, regardless of what the agenda is they're pushing. I enjoy that preachiness, that hitting you over the head with it.
You
And
like when people believe in something.
well, yeah, exactly. I think that's it. I
Yeah.
mean, whether it's the characters or whether it's the filmmakers. I mean, if somebody believes in something, that I mean, that it gives more purpose. So it has
Sure.
meaning for whoever it is. So I
Yeah.
definitely do like that aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, a good point with the heist and everything. I mean, that was something that I had struggled with trying to think of what would be a good comparison. Dead Presidents was one that I thought of. It's another one,
Mm-hmm.
from the '90s that I really liked a lot. Um, you know, the Hughes brothers,
Sure.
and with that one, it's a lot more of a like long, sprawling, like epic, but then you've got that heist element near the end. And this one goes so much better than that one. But I
Sure.
was trying to think of a good one, but I think yeah, the Dark Knight is definitely a good piece there.
Before moving on to your next puzzle piece, I think you've brought up 90s twice so far. And I
Mm-hmm.
think other than the politics involved in this, I think the movie definitely has a bit of a 90s feel to it.
Definitely, I do.
And
I
I
do
think that's
think that.
cool.
I mean, I think that this very much, I think, was inspired by like uh, urban '90s type movies, and also
Mm.
Mel Gibson movies. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think very much. I mean, which I'll go ahead and go into that. I mean, Lethal Weapon. I feel like is just the series in total. I think is a
Sure.
puzzle piece here. I think the just
Okay.
the chemistry of well, just that it's just Mel Gibson, I think, but the chemistry interaction of Mel Gibson's character with his partner throughout the Lethal Weapon movies, that buddy cop kind of vibe of we don't really like each other, but we do really like each other, sort of thing. That's what this one does. It definitely has just
Yeah.
like that great buddy cop vibe to it. I know we discussed this prior, and you had said how they had just such good chemistry together, and they did. It's just
Oh,
like
yeah.
there's some moments are just like really, really like comedic gold, and could be very, very simple things, but just how the one would get under the other's skin about certain things, and then also how they obviously really liked each other, but then also, I mean, Mel Gibson's character basically drags Vince Vaughn's character like along. He's the character I
Yeah.
really felt bad for in this movie, because he just kind of goes
Yeah.
along because this is his partner, and it's his friend, and it's just like, okay, whatever. So,
Yeah. He's
but
in he's in till he's not.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, but yeah, definitely. I just think Mel Gibson movies overall, especially in the late '80s and the '90s, and it's specifically Lethal Weapon, another factor here.
Sure, absolutely. No, I think the Lethal Weapon series is a great series to look to, even with it being Mel Gibson. I think uh, part of what I liked about the movie so much is that chemistry between the two
Right,
leads, and they have it so well. There's
right,
so many great scenes in this of the two of them, even when they're just sitting in a car just
right,
doing it.
right.
And
Exactly.
this movie really takes its time with that. I mean, I know that this director has been, the people talk about slow burns, like, but he really takes his time with just having them sit in the car
Right,
and watching,
right.
and it's really great. I mean, that's when the movie's kind of at its best, even though it's got some great action in it and everything else. That's when it's really living and breathing. I mean, there's such real characters.
Right, exactly. I think the characters feel real, and then also the charisma of Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson. That obviously helps, but yeah, their interactions are just so good. They really are. And it's just
Absolutely.
something simple as one of them eating and it just annoying the hell out of the other one. I mean, you know, um, and that sort of thing is well, I feel in a lot of ways, I feel that Quentin Tarantino, I think, is another, influence of this movie in many, many ways. But I think
Sure.
that simple part there of, kind of everyday life aspects taking place, and that being like a part of this movie that's this crime drama, and then it being like fun and interesting, like these characters that aren't just black and white, that are very gray, that have this good in them, they have this bad in them, and then also the fact
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like they're these just like simple everyday like life moments that they're going through as well, and it's
Sure.
fun.
Yeah.
So there's so many elements there that I just felt overall Quentin Tarantino is an influence, and I would say specifically with this movie though, Reservoir Dogs and Jackie Brown, those were the two that really came to my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put them both down as puzzle pieces because yeah, I certainly it's funny you bring those up specifically because I was thinking about Quentin Tarantino, but I wasn't quite sure which movies I would use
Right.
specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you're I'm letting you make the final call on that one right there. I could have easily like jumped in and gone with any, but yeah, I think those are good ones though to specifically point to. And yeah, I think one more thing before I move on to my next puzzle piece. I think that talking about these characters and the watching them live and watching them breathe, and despite them not being necessarily good people, but
Mm-hmm.
they're having that like the nuggets of good in them, even though we really don't want to celebrate these people. I think that is definitely kind of the central thing in this movie.
Right.
I think that's what he's trying to show is that there's good in people that are bad, really, is what it comes down to. Like there is a theme there.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the Mel Gibson character, of how what his intent is, why he's doing what he's doing, also why he feels the way that he does. I mean,
Mm.
and of course for him, it's all about his family. He has a teenage daughter. He lives in a bad neighborhood. He has his wife, who was also a cop, that she has deteriorating, disease that makes her disabled, and
Mhm.
so here he is. He's a guy that's been doing the same job for years and years and years, and he's good at what he does. He's not necessarily, um, you know, a, uh, a clean cop. He's definitely a dirty
Mhm.
cop. Um, but I think he's definitely, there's a lot of good qualities to him as a person, and that he in his mind is doing, the right thing, or at least what he feels is the
Right.
right thing at the time of what he's doing. So,
Exactly.
and yeah, you're right. I mean, that's pretty much like the overall theme of this. I think really kind of trying to look at, especially in this environment today, looking past our our differences and also our beliefs, and just kind of seeing that, we all really want the same thing. We just want to
Sure,
be
sure.
we just want to provide. We just want to you know
Yeah.
be good at something, and you know there is so much that gets
Some of us are
caught up in
awful.
that. Yeah.
Well, speaking of racists who have a heart in there somewhere, my next puzzle piece is Gran Torino with Clint Eastwood.
Mm.
Um, Another movie where you've got just like basically an awful racist person, but you kind of sort of want to root for him
Right.
because you know that he means well.
Right.
And yeah, that's another similar. Similar thing to what's going on here with these main characters, just being, not very good people, but they, you know that their heart's kind of in the right place. You see where they're coming from, even though they're you don't want to give them too much.
Right.
You don't want to feel like you're giving them too much, but you do kind of see where they're coming from.
Yeah. No, but and actually that's interesting. I didn't even think of that movie, but I definitely thought of Clint Eastwood. But my mind went to old school Clint Eastwood when he was playing cop movies, specifically Dirty Harry.
Sure.
I mean, these are kind of modern day Dirty Harry cops, rogue cops that play by their own rules, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's been a long time since I've watched Dirty Harry. I mean, Dirty Harry is a great movie, but I'm sure there's a lot of it that's politically incorrect in this day and age. You know what I mean? I'm sure.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very stereotypical as well. So, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen Dirty Harry, but it's a great movie and great character. And these are essentially modern day Dirty Harrys.
I feel like if everybody had cameras on their cell phones back in the days of Dirty Harry, they'd have caught Dirty Harry doing some bad shit too.
Right.
Oh man, what's your next puzzle piece?
Oh well, to bring this to a newer one, because we have already hit on like Lethal Weapon and the chemistry and everything of them, but the Nice Guys, this reminded me a bit of the Nice Guys. Of course, the Nice Guys is a way more fun and funny movie, but just the mix of Russell Crowe with Ryan Gosling is kind of similar in a way to the old and young, kind of a bit
Sure.
with Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson, although they're closer, I would say, as in like personalities, as opposed to Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. But I think you put these two characters in another movie, you could definitely have a Nice Guys kind of movie, and I think Nice Guys comes from the same place of liking those. Mel Gibson, Lethal Weapon type movies, and so
absolutely,
I think that that's a good fun piece to mention, because that's the thing, is that this movie has some fun in it, and it has some comedy. I mean, there's some likability, like you're even saying about how the characters, they're likable, and you want to root for them. It's just there's
right.
It's like a darker, grittier Nice Guys, almost, in a way that's not as funny.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I had not thought of that at all, but I could totally see that. And yeah, I think you're right. Both of these, the filmmakers came from a place of wanting to celebrate classic cop stories and like buddy cops, and but just in totally different ways. And also, speaking of the Nice Guys, I was going to bring this up like after, like when we do our closing thoughts, but I guess I'll bring it up right now. The end credit sequence that I've been talking about on Facebook and Twitter that I love so much, that seems like something that would have been way more at home in the Nice Guys than in this. For people who haven't watched this, although you should have watched the movie before you listen to the episode, but for some reason after this like really dark, although with moments of humor, but this dark movie about like heavy topics like racism, and a lot of people die very violently. Then we come to the end of the movie, and we've got this hilarious, ridiculous song. I think I read it was by the OJs. I'm not sure, and it's like Jungle Safari or something. And then during it, they're doing like that classic '80s thing of where like they show like a little 3-second scene of each character smiling and like kind of making a little giggle, and then it freeze frames them. And I'm like, I'm like, what? Like, for this kind of a movie, that's so out of place and ridiculous. It was so funny.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that would have made sense for The Nice Guys. For this movie, it did not make sense. But I loved it, even though it didn't make sense. I loved it so
Right.
much.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing that just comes back to just the weirdness of this filmmaker, and how again how I feel like he's one of those guys that's just kind of like Tarantino, that's just kind of like, I'm just gonna do it however I want it, and it's like
Exactly.
nobody
Yeah.
else is like quite gets it or understands it, but then it's like he does it, and so then it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So this one,
He's gonna do it.
I would say this movie plays itself more, I would say, serious than his last movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Cell Block movie, it one is so over the top. So that one, he brings down the over the topness in this one. But there's still like, you can just hit that that fun humor. He obviously has a fun humor to him. It still seeps into
Right.
this, and definitely the closing credits is one of those. Yeah, as far as like puzzle pieces, that would be like, like the A Team or something. Uh, like I can't think specifically, but like TV shows like that, like the A Team, and
Yeah.
um,
I thought of The Naked Gun.
oh, there you go, the Naked Gun. Yeah. So, yeah. So, and that is the
Oh
thing, is the
man,
Naked Gun.
that's
I'm sure
great.
it probably did do that exactly, and it was probably making fun of like the TV show,
Yeah,
from the '80s. It seems like that they all came on
totally.
like that, or went off like that, like The Fall Guy, and I like all these shows that I liked when I was a kid. Dukes of Hazzard, even. So, yeah.
Love it. I love it. All right. So my next puzzle piece then. So I'm realizing both of my last two puzzle pieces are cop movies.
Mhm.
So first one is Bad Lieutenant.
Mm, okay.
Just a movie, about bad cops, and you know
Right.
what I mean. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, and I don't want to get any hate mail here,
Nah,
but I feel like these guys, they're not good guys, but we don't see anything that is that like over the top awful. Like they're not, they didn't kill anybody. They certainly should be reprimanded and possibly lose their
right.
job over the things that they're doing, but they're not like pushing it to any kind of extreme, which is an interesting choice, which I think kind of allows us to kind of go along for it and
Right.
still laugh at their
Right.
likability and all that stuff. I think, and it's definitely, it's an interesting thing trying to ride that line, and I think he does it well, Zoller, with writing it this way, with not making the things that they did. They're racist and they're
Right.
not good, and
Right.
these people should not be out there working jobs. They should be fired for the things they do. But on a sliding scale, it's like it allows you to still sit in the car with them and still laugh when they're
Right.
joking around with each other.
Right. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and not only that, like actually, like I said, I felt for the Vince Vaughn character. Um,
Hmm.
you know, I, I I I didn't really feel for the Mel Gibson character, as far as like, when he got what he got, and even though
Yeah.
we do spoil things, I don't want to go into much details with either of those things, but yeah, I, I think you're definitely right there, that they could have definitely opened this up a lot harsher, and
Yeah.
then though you wouldn't have really been along for the ride at all, I think, had they done that.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I'm not sure how I got to that point from Bad Lieutenant, but I guess Bad Lieutenant was a pretty bad guy though. It's been a long time since I saw
Well,
that
Bad
movie.
Lieutenant is one. Yeah, yeah, Bad Lieutenant for me was one that I never could get on board with because um, it just he seemed like such a terrible character, I mean, terrible person,
Yeah.
and he did stupid things as well. So there was never at any point that I ever was able to get on board with him, as opposed to though the Nicolas Cage Bad Lieutenant movie.
I was about to say maybe this is a little more on that one.
Yeah, it's kind of a mesh. Yeah, really, it's kind of a blend of those two. That one had,
yeah,
it's just like the character was just so over the top that it made it fun. I mean,
right.
This one is a more of a balance because there is a realism to them, and I don't know, kind of a balance of both of the Bad Lieutenant movies. This one could have been Bad Lieutenant 3 though, for sure.
All right, what's your next puzzle,
might as well go into this. I had wrote down a couple of cop movies just that I had thought of, which were more gritty type cop movies, still kind of in the same vein in many ways because Colors, you basically had the older cop and the younger cop, and it was like in these movies that I'm bringing up here, Colors, and then also Training Day, it's more of the older cop showing the younger cop the ropes, which this one kind of spins that a little bit. It's not necessarily doing that. That the younger cop is already in deep, and the older cop is already like beyond like retirement essentially. He's definitely too old for this shit.
Sure, yeah, he's stuck.
So
yeah.
So but definitely Training Day and Colors, I thought of both of those movies. Again, you've got cops that aren't really good cops, that bend rules, break rules, and they dismiss it as, well, this is what I have to do. This is the way you get things done.
Yeah.
And then also even End of Watch is another one, and that one might more so be kind of in that same, more like along this one of kind of the one guy dragging along the other, as opposed to those.
Right.
But yeah.
Right on. Yeah, Training Day was on my list. That was like my last fully formed puzzle piece, and definitely a lot of what you were just saying, and just like, a lot of the banter and a lot of the the exposing that gray area between what it is to be a good cop and a bad cop, and there's a lot of that going on in this movie, and I haven't seen it in a while. Training Day, it was such a good movie.
I haven't watched it in a while either, I admit. I have seen it a couple of times, but the other thing that it comes to mind with me on is that would you go along for the ride if it wasn't Denzel playing that character? Because that is such a horrible character,
right?
But Denzel brings so much charisma to it, and I kind of maybe I feel that way in a sense with Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson, I don't care what anybody says, I love Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson has so much charisma, and he just, to me, he lights up a screen. It's totally different in a different way than the way Denzel does, but I'm kind of like, really, it doesn't matter what the character is. Either one of those guys plays it, and I'm along for the ride, I think. So,
yeah, we were texting the day after I watched this movie, like, God damn it, why does he have to be such a shitbag?
Right,
right. He's so damn good in every movie that he's in. He's so good.
He is. And here's the thing: is speaking of him as an influence to this movie, I think him as a filmmaker is also an influence on this movie, as far as some of the
That's true.
the gore and violence of this movie. Um,
Intense
yeah,
violence. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so, and from what I understand, I'm trying to remember. I think I read an interview. Um, or I listened to one. I don't remember exactly, but this was way before I'd even saw this, before it had came out. That evidently, because Vince Vaughn was in the previous movie, Raw at Cell Block 99, I think's the name of it.
Right. Uh-huh.
And when he was filming that, he approached Vaughn about getting Mel Gibson the script for this one.
Hmm.
He hadn't wrote the script with Mel Gibson in mind, um, but he was like, "Wait a second, you know Mel Gibson? Here, give him the script. I want you guys in it." And of course, Mel Gibson reads it, and he's like, "Yeah, sign me up." So
Yeah.
anyway, I think that even if he didn't, because he claims that he never writes any of his parts with any actors in mind, which of course he's cast Jennifer Carpenter and Rose that I think were written specifically so he could just put her in the movies. But anyway, he says he doesn't do that. So I just feel like, though, that in many ways, I think Mel Gibson was a big influence on this movie, regardless if he says so or not. So
Right, right. Yeah, no, it certainly seems like it. I mean, it seems tailor-made for him. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, as long as we're talking about Mel Gibson for a minute here, it's an interesting thing that he was down for it because, it's certainly risky for him. Like he's
right,
kind of gotten this rare chance to
right,
come back after all of his
right.
awfulness, and like got the Oscar nomination for or was it did he get the Oscar nom? I know he got the Globe nom for what's it called?
Right,
Hacksaw Ridge. And it just seems like he's like back in a way, and certainly not in any. He's never going to be back in like leading
right, right,
man, real leading man territory. But like certainly back enough, like that, like he could just ride by and do some less controversial roles. But I mean, he
right.
really went for this
Yeah,
thing.
I think that just speaks to the quality of the script and this the
Yeah,
ideas behind this movie. I mean, again,
yeah. He was like, I got to
I could
do it.
say this that people can hate on Mel Gibson all they want. I don't care. People can hate on Zahler all they want. I don't care. I'm a Zahler fan, and here's the thing: is that I didn't like his first movie, Bone Tomahawk. I wasn't on board that one, and but
Hmm.
the two after that, yeah, he 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 brings it, and he has his own unique and interesting uh, style and also like sense of humor, and it's very much also like a throwback like Tarantino does to exploitation and that sort of thing. So it's definitely in
Sure.
that same kind of uh, like spirit. So
Yeah, yeah.
that they another one I was going to mention though, as far as and this goes back again, 90s um, movies, cop movies, and just kind of a fun movie, but also very weirdly violent. And that's The Last Boy Scout.
Ooh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, I'm a big fan of that one. That was my favorite Tony Scott movie, one of my favorite Bruce Willis movies. And I mean, that movie. There's just that football scene where it's just insane. I remember when I saw that movie at the theater, and the football player pulls out the gun and he starts shooting people, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, it just blew me away. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
the moment in here, Jennifer Carpenter, her character, I text you this. One of the things I really love. She's in the movie. Her character doesn't really have anything to do with the movie. Totally could be throwaway. Totally could be a part of another movie. Such a fantastic scene, though, so powerful and just so brutal too.
Oh yeah.
Her part from start to finish in this movie, just like so hit me so hard. It's just so haunting. But yeah, the it hadn't been. I don't think at that point it hadn't been that violent, and then it was just like boom, like a huge
Yeah.
blow of violence, and it was like totally unexpected. Because like for me, I'm a fan of Jennifer Carpenter, so I'm waiting for her to show up. Then she shows up, and I'm like, oh yeah, and then I'm like, oh man, her character, she poured it on immediately, and then all of a sudden she's gone, and it was like, wow. But
Yeah.
totally off topic of what I was talking about with Last Boy Scout, but yeah, kind of
we had
that
to fit it in
impactful
somewhere.
violence, and then also at the same time, that funness of the characters, the way Bruce Willis and Damon Wayans were in that movie. That one, of course, is also more of a funny movie, but it goes into dark areas. And it's almost like this one kind of just took that sort of idea and strips away all of the silliness and then just kind of wallows in that darkness of it. So
Right. No, I completely agree. And I mean, back to the Jennifer Carpenter scene, I was originally trying to think of other examples of things like that, and I couldn't think of one, like where just all of a sudden we're following this new character, and then
right.
and then it just really just kind of throws you off. So that way, once we get to that big impactful moment of violence, it's like it just hits you all the more harder. It's like it's a really interesting piece of filmmaking there.
Yeah, well, one of the things though that it's not exactly, but one of the things I thought of was Jackie Brown, Chris Tucker's character, because there's a great like scene with Chris Tucker, and it's kind of like it's almost like its own short movie within Jackie Brown, and it's kind of along that same kind of thing. It's like I think most filmmakers would cut those scenes, but again, these are filmmakers who basically just do what they want to do because they want to do it. And so I think that scene is one that would have been cut down or probably cut altogether. And I always felt that way though about the Chris Tucker scene in Jackie Brown as well. Which it's been a while since I've watched Jackie Brown, but he like gets kidnapped and thrown into the trunk. I don't know. It seems even weird that he was in Jackie Brown because I know it's one of those moments though that it's like it's so good though of a like scene, and it's just like it's kind of like from another movie or something though. But yeah, it's along the same lines there.
Right. No, totally. Well, I'm fresh out of puzzle pieces. Do you have any more you wanted to do before we got to the finished puzzle?
Well, yeah, just actually real quick. I actually thought of Spike Lee's 25th Hour a little bit.
Oh,
That goes into
yeah.
that preachiness side, though.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the 25th Hour, the scene where he, I think it's Ed Norton's character, and he goes into the bathroom and he just starts spewing all of this like negativity and all this like racism. I could have seen a scene like that in this movie.
Sure.
Just very, very much. I like we were talking about earlier. I like preachiness and I like passion, and I like things like that in movies. So I'm a big fan of Spike Lee, and it's weird that I would think of Spike Lee maybe when watching this movie.
Sure.
But, definitely 25th Hour. And then
art is art.
the other one, the other one, which is, it totally might seem like a total bizarre puzzle piece here, but Prisoners, because Prisoners is this. It's more of a story mostly about some good people that do something terrible because of something terrible that happened, but just the darkness of that movie overall. This one kind of has that darkness, and then also the way that this movie gives you pieces of all of these people's lives. Like it takes you, like a lot of movies won't do this, where you'll see a guy, know nothing about him, and then he plays a part later on. And then you see a bad guy and he's doing bad things. You have no idea who this guy is, and then he works his way in later. Just like that, just the way it worked, like the way it unfolded, I guess.
Sure.
The way the pieces all came together. And then also how like dark a subject it was.
Right.
So just Prisoners was one that came to mind, just one that I really liked a lot. So,
and Prisoners is a movie that I still haven't seen. I've been telling you for years now that I'm going to finally get around to watching
it. I love that movie. You gotta watch that movie.
I need to watch it. I know I could just tell that I'm going to like it. I don't know why. I just still haven't watched it. I got to watch that movie. Oh man. Well, so does that bring us to the finished puzzle then?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Well, the finished puzzle for Dragged Across Concrete is Trespass, The Dark Knight, Dead Presidents, the Lethal Weapon series, Reservoir Dogs, Jackie Brown, Gran Torino, Dirty Harry, The Nice Guys, Bad Lieutenant, Colors, Training Day, End of Watch, The Last Boy Scout, The 25th Hour, and Prisoners. And
nice.
Yeah, good list of movies. A lot of cop movies, obviously. I think, when it comes down to it, like we've talked about, like when you get past to the overall message, you actually do have a fun cop movie at the center of this. When you get past the overall themes of racism and awfulness within the prisons, the police system, and it comes down to actually some really great cinematic cop stuff going on. There's a great bank robbery scene. There's great stakeout scenes. There's the little glimpses into these cops' lives are really interesting and really well done. And overall, I was surprised with how much I like this movie.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's a great movie. It's actually my favorite movie this year so far. I was really, really impressed with it. I didn't expect to like it this much, even though it is Mel Gibson. It's really just it's kind of it's so different. I feel it's different. I mean, even though we mentioned all these various kinds of movies that are part of the mix here, but I feel like it totally has its own personality, and it's just totally different. It's very unique. It's not going to be a typical cop movie experience that you would expect. So, yeah, and I think the acting was great all around in every every row. And there's a lot of powerful moments in the movie.
Yeah,
definitely,
absolutely.
But I'd recommend it. I know there's probably a lot of people that they've already jumped off the bandwagon with this filmmaker.
Yeah.
They think he's racist. They think he's pushing some racist agenda. And then I don't know how you can watch this movie though and feel that way, especially the way it ends and everything plays out. But I don't know. Characters can be racist. I mean, we live in a day and age where characters aren't allowed to be racist anymore. Of course, the 3 Billboards,
and people hated that too.
Controversy.
Yeah, people.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That was the controversy with something like Three Billboards. It's like that to me that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the power of art is to make us try to look at things differently, push us to think differently. Make us look at things that we don't necessarily want to look at and think about.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a great movie.
Oh yeah, solid. So yeah, I think that about does it. Do you want to recommend something and then plug anything you want to plug?
Well, I don't really have anything to plug. As far as recommending, I guess I would say definitely watch Zahler's Brawl in Cell Block 99 as well. It's a totally different movie. It's totally bonkers. That's what I'll say about it. It is absolutely bonkers. And Vince Vaughn, totally different character in it than this one. He to me, he comes off almost as slightly playing Michael Shannon in some regards, but he is like so over the top, like in need of anger management. And there's some really, really ridiculous things in it. So anybody that hadn't seen it has to watch that movie. And that's what I was expecting, some of the same thing with this one.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised that it was actually more of a serious movie than that one was. So again, I love filmmakers that can kind of stay along the same way and where you can know that, oh, this is a Tarantino movie, but it's actually a totally different movie than the one that you watched prior. And I think that this filmmaker, he has that same quality to him. So
yeah,
I am on board with Zahler, and I will be watching whatever he does next.
We all know I don't watch many movies at home, but that will be the next movie I watch at home because I've always wanted to see it, and after watching this, I'm super excited to watch it. And I guess we can close it out with my admission that I didn't realize Dragged Across Concrete was actually playing at one theater here in Vegas, and I got suckered into watching it at home on VOD. So damn you, Mel Gibson.
Testing. My name is Toby. I'm one of the hosts of the Secret Transmission podcast. We do a satire show all about conspiracies, UFOs, the paranormal, cryptozoology, true crime, and much more. Our show is transmitted to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, and many other podcast apps. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Secret Transpod. We hope you come listen to us try to explain the unexplainable.
So that does it for today's episode, talking about Dragged Across Concrete with Chad Clinton Freeman. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope, all those topics and themes didn't bother you too much. If they did, don't listen to our other podcast, Bird Road, because we get into a lot more on there. So that does it for today. As always, I want to remind you to please make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. We are on Pocket Casts. I went with Pocket Casts first. That's interesting. That's where I listen to podcasts, so that must be, it's on my head right now, I guess. We're also on, of course, iTunes, on Spotify, on TuneIn Radio, all the major podcast apps. If there's somewhere you listen to podcasts and you don't hear us, let me know, and I will try to get us on there. You could also follow us on social media at PiecingPod. Join our Facebook group, Piecing It Together, a movie discussion group where we continue the conversation about these movies and talk about all kinds of other movies as well. You can also go to our website, piecingpod.com, sign up for the mailing list. We got some great contests coming up soon, and you have to be signed up for the mailing list for those. So get to it. And I guess that's it. I'm going to leave you guys with a piece of music, and we will be back with another episode next week. But let's leave you with a piece of music, something dark. What should we leave you guys with? Well, how about this track, Cut Open, which I think I've played on the show before, but the reason I'm going to play it is because it was used in a film It's called Better Criminal. It's an indie film that you can watch on Amazon VOD and a bunch of other VOD services, and it's got a similar like crime thriller type of vibe. And so I figured might as well play this song because the song was in a movie kind of like this. I could have seen this song in this movie. So, Cut Open. It's from my album An Unseen Sky. And here we go.
And all points west.